The disintegration of Elizabeth Warren's progressive credentials seems to be complete. Politico writes, in the thick of primary season, Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden brawled over Medicare for All. He called her approach angry, elitist, condescending. I know, giving healthcare for everyone, it's so elitist. She shot back. Anyone who defends the healthcare status quo with industry talking points is, quote, running in the wrong presidential primary. Doesn't that seem like ages ago when Elizabeth Warren was unequivocally for Medicare for All and then realized Bernie Sanders had cornered that lane and she decided to pivot and move towards the center? 6 months later, with Biden, the presumptive Democratic nominee, and Warren in the running for VP, she is striking a more harmonious chord. I think right now people want to see improvements in our healthcare system, and that means strengthening the Affordable Care Act. That's the cycle. It's cyclical. She's finished her devolution. She told students at University of Chicago's Institute of Politics this week, while adding that she still wants to get to single payer eventually, because that's how politics works. You put out a pipe dream, say you want to get there eventually, and then Republicans, they're going to leave the institutions that you put in place. They're not going to touch them, right? We saw exactly what happened with the Affordable Care Act. When you don't make systemic changes, Republicans shred them because it's very easy to bureaucratically tinker. You have to go full bore or it's not going to stick. The shift is the latest public signal Warren has sent Biden's way in recent weeks that she wants the job of vice president. I mean, she literally told Rachel Maddow last month, yes, she would say yes to being vice president. So it hasn't been that subtle, and wants Biden to see her as a loyal governing partner despite their past clashes, which go back decades. Now, I'll admit this is something in the presidential primary I was dead wrong on. Their distaste for each other was known throughout DC circles. Elizabeth Warren's specific dislike for Joe Biden was well known, but I underestimated her naked ambition. I'll say that. I did not think that she would be this brazen and this calculated. But honestly, it comes off as deeply pathetic. Once upon a time, Biden championed the bankruptcy bill, as you guys remember, which made it harder for regular people to get bankruptcy protection. Elizabeth Warren, not a senator yet, vociferously opposed that bill. And then after that, he was fighting for the Violence Against Women Act. She wrote this as women's groups were supporting him due to that specific latter piece of legislation, the Violence Against Women Act. Apparently, Biden's support of this bill trumps all concerns the group might have had over the fact that Senator Biden is the leading Democratic proponent and one of the strongest supporters of the very bankruptcy bill, which Now Legal Defense, the women's group she was talking about, had fought so hard. The point is not to discredit other worthy causes or to pit one disadvantaged group against one another, Warren continued, nor would we suggest that battered women deserve less help or that subsidized daycare is unimportant. The point is simply that family economics should not be left to giant corporations and paid lobbyists, and senators like Joe Biden should not be allowed to sell out women in the morning and be heralded as their friend in the evening. That used to be her position back when I think she was a very strong progressive voice, but DC corrupts, power corrupts. I don't specifically think she's corrupted by moneyed interests in the direct way that, say, what Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell are, right? Nancy Pelosi's also just fabulously wealthy at the same time, so her moneyed interests are vested in it as well. I think the power has corrupted her. I think she never was as strong in her principle as some, traditional leftists were. Obviously, we know that she was a Republican for a large part of her life. But I think that the power has caused her to revert back to some of those old tendencies, and it's depressing to see. I'm sure you guys know how I feel about that. And he's also just not going to pick her. I don't know why he would. She doesn't have the cachet with the left anymore, as I'm displaying right now. And she also didn't win even her home state. She lost handily in the primary. The only constituency that she appeals to at this point, the only voting bloc, are elitist coastal liberals. Biden has that locked up. He needs to be more strategic. And honestly, of course, I would rather him have a more progressive vice president to push him in that direction if I believed he could be pushed in any direction, to be honest with you. And I don't know how much pushing she would do, honestly, at this point, as she abandons progressive priorities in her narcissistic bid to be vice president. The Politico article writes, her willingness to bash fellow Democrats made some Obama administration officials feel that she was self-servingly sanctimonious. That was one of the negatives cited about her being Joe Biden's vice president. So I don't think he's going to pick her for the strategic reasons. I think he should go with Tammy Baldwin or Gretchen Whitmer or someone from the Midwest who could, strengthen that area strategically in terms of winning over the Rust Belt, which he desperately needs. And I don't think that the people in Biden's administration or his donors, which I've also previously reported on, want him to pick Elizabeth Warren. I don't think there's a strategic advantage to picking Elizabeth Warren. So she's potentially selling out once again for no reason, because her instincts are terrible and power has made her just lose it. So this gives me no joy to report, obviously.